this is where some of the Pilaf stuff comes
Yep.
from.
Pilaf, grab Pilaf, play Pilaf, grab short hair, play short hair, draw 3.
I don't think I'm having fun right now. Hey everybody, Espira, and today's video is not really a video that I wanted to make, but I have been reached out by people from the community, and apparently Bandai is currently taking some form of feedback in terms of how we would feel about a future ban list and the state of things with the game. But with that, I do feel some slight responsibility to at least give my 2 cents and hopefully be the change I want to see in the world. Before we get into things like specific decks and specific cards, I think I want to give some kind of context around how I'm currently feeling about the game of Fusion World, which will then inform why I think about certain cards and decks the way that I do. Currently, when it comes to Fusion World, it feels like the top of the meta is really nothing but value maxing. And that's not totally unexpected. The game of Fusion World is built around the foundation that the entire goal of the game is to dwindle down your opponent's hand size until you can win in a late game shotgun or what have you, because you've been able to have better hand advantage than they did throughout an entire game. It is kind of hard to pull away from the fact that best decks will be the best at value maxing, specifically because they do those kinds of things. The issue though is more so the way that those best decks are able to kind of do everything under the sun on top of being able to get you the max value every single turn. Add on to that there's just not a lot of exploration in terms of card effects or what things can do. If you look at the cards that most decks are playing right now, they effectively either just replace themselves, they cheat out a body, or they're able to destroy a card, right? Like, I'll play a card, my card destroys your card, whether that's red with power reduction, which doesn't really happen too much because red's not too much in the meta right now, or blue with a bottom deck, or green with a destruction, or yellow with a rest mode destruction, right? It is, I play a card, it probably has some form of removal, and then it's just an efficient body that can attack. You apply that to like 60% of the deck, and then you get utility cards that are just, hey, prevent my opponent from being able to do a thing or draw a card. And all of that without really being able to explore the combo step. I mean, how many activate battles are you really using in a game? Heck, how many of them are you even including in a deck? For most decks, not all that many. And it just goes to show that the game is so committed to its solitaire style gameplay that it really feels like I don't have a lot of opportunities as a player to be able to engage with my opponent and prevent them from what they're doing or interact with them, which I understand. A big part about Fusion World is that it is a simplified version of Masters that doesn't lean so hard on interaction to make it more approachable. But I would argue that the gameplay just becomes incredibly stale because of it. There's no reason that we can't have more ways to engage with our opponent in the combo step that would lead to more interesting back and forth gameplay that wouldn't rely on pure value maxing. Just attack, force cards out of my opponent's hand, swing my opponent, get cards out of their hand, back and forth. And then the big deciding factor being like, how many super combos did you see, which was always a thing in Masters, but feels even worse in Fusion World when you don't have means to be able to make plays outside of just trying to force cards out of your opponent's hand via the combo step. So because I can't interact with my opponent, and then the only way I can meaningfully, deal with the board is just being able to play cards that remove cards. So it just feels like the entire game is based around removal on a stick, or things that enable removal on a stick. And on top of that, the top decks just feel so good that rogue strategies don't really feel like they have an in. They can be explosive at any moment. They can play slow if necessary, and they can generate absurd amounts of value at like any point in the game. So for Halo Coup, outside of the first 3 turns, which are relatively slow, you can then go Gohan, swing, clear board, attack, and then attack with some other bigger bodies. If you don't have that, you can just kind of do Pilaf loops over and over and over again to be able to swing for 20, 30k with multitudes of bodies, including the Videls. So then you got that aggro, and if necessary, you can play slow by just playing infinite Pilafs turn over turn over turn. When it comes to Buu, they can obviously swing you at massive 30Ks on 5 energy. They can go 30k swing, double strike, 30k swing, leader swing, because they get the additional swing. If they go up to 6 energy, then they have the additional 3 energy. It's a lot that they can do. And then the deck can play slow. Hey, are you going to slow down your pace of play to play more defensively? That's fine. I've got this 3-drop that's going to be able to rip your hand turn over turn over turn. I can just as easily play the slow game. And then same thing with droids. They can be explosive if they need to. By the time turn 4 comes around, they can play 4-drop into 4-drop into 2-drop into 3-drop. They can swarm you, but obviously they can get to 8, and then they can play things like Cell to gain life. They can play Broly. So all the best decks right now are really good at being able to be explosive and wide, being able to go tall if necessary, being able to play slow. So right now it just feels like the best decks can all kind of do everything, and it really just pushes the notion that the game is all about just being able to play the most valuable card turn over turn over turn. And it's come to a point where it's just maximize the things that I don't particularly find fun. I've been saying since set 1 that I think Pilaf is going to be specifically a problem And it's not only because it's like good, right? But it's specifically because it enables blue to have an infinite way to be able to use its energy and get cards from hand at any point in the game. So if you're ever in a late game position against a blue deck and you guys are top decking, if that blue deck happens to have Pilaf, they actually have access to, by that point of the game, they have 6 energy, being able to draw 6 cards, right? And not only do that, but between things like Videl and all that shenanigans, they're actually able to swing, sword, bounce the Pilaf, play that same Pilaf. So effectively, they're able to, if needed, pressure you with like 4 different attacks for like 20 to 30k each, but also be able to start regenerating their hand over and over and over again, thus meaning that you can never beat out a blue deck if you're stuck in that late game position where you don't have explosive plays to make, so you're trying to outvalue them. It is an inevitability that does not feel good. Same thing with droids. They can play a defensive game plan that, while it is easier to be able to tech into an aggro deck that'll punch them in the face, they're still in the position where they can play extremely defensively, and then in the late game, if needed, go big or go extremely wide with their 4-drop. And that's the biggest crux of where I feel about the game. Now, set 6 is just around the corner, so naturally new cards will potentially change where we're at with the state of the game. Kind of how things play, the new archetypes could be interesting. I'm looking forward to playing Broly. I don't know about the yellow stuff too much. I don't totally know about the black stuff too much, but at least there are new ways to play that'll be able to keep the game engaging for a couple weeks. But Halo Q's a few sets old, Buu is a few sets old, Androids is literally set 1 leader. I don't feel the biggest amount of confidence with those decks not propagating back to the top once things have settled after the first few weeks. Long term, I would love Bondi to be able to explore more interesting designs with the game, give us more things that interact in the combat step. Things like Frieza's Death Ball are like a really cool card in yellow to be able to force your opponent to be able to work around things. And the fact that we still haven't gotten a red card that gives more than minus 5k on defense, and just getting more cards like that that are able to kind of interact with our opponent, something I want to see long term. It's kind of crazy to me that we're all going 6 sets in and there's no way for you to punish an opponent's greedy shotgun on a battle card, right? That is like peak being able to play those kinds of mind games. And for me, at least, we're kind of like peak masters, and I would love to see that kind of thing come back. Short term, I think a ban list would definitely go a long way in terms of helping how I feel about the game. Things like Pilaf, I think, should have been gone since set 1, whether that's an errata that he can't pick himself back up, right? We have so many cards at this point that do a very similar effect to what he does, but just doesn't go infinite, I think would go a long way. I think in terms of Halo Q, the strategy is kind of degenerate, and if you got rid of like short hair for them to be able to go from 0 cards in hand or 1 card in hand to like 7 in 1 turn cycle, while also being able to do additional things, could go a long way. I know that arguments for sharpener have been there as well. I think that's fine. Not being able to use the extra cards for free obviously limit the amount of value that they can have, because it's like 1 less Satan City on board, plus you don't get the free use. So I think there's a lot of merit there. The 30k Buu is probably what I would hit if you're looking to kind of knock down Buu a little bit. I don't like hitting 3-drop Bobbity because that is the crux of the deck. And as much as I hate the 3-drop Bobbity into, I think it's like Super Buu or Buuhan, that like forces you to discard 2 cards. As much as I hate that, I think getting rid of the 30k gets rid of probably the most powerful play that the deck has, while not totally crippling what the identity of the deck is. Having to deal with the 30k into double strike into 30k plus leader swing is kind of really tough in the late game, and that is probably where I would rein that in. And then finally, 4-cost droids, I think, just generate too much value. There is an argument to be able to hit like Nameku, but I think the gameplay with Nameku is more interesting. Sure, you're never allowed to go to 2, but because you're playing with your opponent in terms of them going to a low life total, and then you're trying to make sure they can't draw cards, I think it's interesting gameplay enough to merit kind of keeping around, and you can play around it much more easier if you're not dealing with the other things of yellow and blue. But the 4-cost droids, too much value. They allow droids to be able to play 3 different play styles, whether that's go wide, go big, or stall. And I think that it's a 10k, like it just actually does everything. And it's a card that I'm just tired of seeing because it centralizes the fact that green has to play a very specific way. New archetypes need to be built around doing different things, which I'm all for different things. But the fact that droids will just inevitably always be the best top end deck because they have such a wide array of options, with that 4-drop kind of slotting in perfectly as something that can help with the board, that can be combo power, that can ramp into itself because it only costs 1, is probably a little bit too much. If I could only have one thing though, I would say get rid of Pilaf. And not only because it's like strong, because I can deal with strong cards. I like playing with broken strong cards all the time, but primarily because I just don't think players should have access to an infinite amount of resources that can in kind, loop itself, defend you infinitely, and apply an amazing amount of pressure. But those are just my 2 cents on the ban list. I probably could have given a more cohesive conversation piece, but like I said, this was very off the cuff at the behest of the community. But that said, I do still enjoy being able to talk a little bit of Fusion World with you guys. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think in terms of the format. Game design specifically is my long-term wish. So if you guys have any 2 cents about that down there, but also let your opinion be heard about whether you guys would want a ban list and what you guys would like to see with the future of Fusion World. Catch you guys on the next one.